I'll tell you what, a lot of people think this trade is inconsequential, but I'll tell you this. The scoreboard operator and whoever's doing the intros better be on their P's and Q's going forward. Psychos and sickos unite for a breaking news edition of the PHNX Suns podcast. Of course, brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. What a day it is today. A groundbreaking trade for the Phoenix Suns. Okay, really, not really, but they did make a deal. I'm Eric. That's Gil. We got Steven. Espo's going to be on Southwest Bias here in just about 20 minutes. Former Suns GM Ryan McDonough is going to be on with him, so make sure you go and check that out. We'll be done before that, but then we'll be back at noon for a live trade deadline reaction and breakdown of this trade even more so. Then we'll be back tonight for a pregame and postgame show. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, help us get to 50K. Gentlemen, the Suns made a swap. They sent out Nick Richards and Nigel Hayes-Davis to the Milwaukee Bucks in exchange for Cole Anthony and Amir Coffey. Steven, your instant reaction to what might be the only deal the Suns make at the deadline.
Yeah, business decisions. They have emphasized that they're good with what they have in house, and I feel like this trade is one that aligns with that train of thought. Um, to the tune of ducking the tax, I think Bobby Marks mentioned about $2.2 million, as well as opening up a roster spot with this deal. So, obviously, to the latter point, the roster spots, they have some guys that have been in consideration for being converted. And I think that leads to, I guess, the who is going to be receiving that opportunity. So, all in all, I think it was a good trade aligned with everything that they've spoken to over the last week or two. And now it's just about what's the next thing that they're doing transactionally.
Yeah, big time. The money part of it is big. Bobby Marks tweeting that. I think my initial reaction was, first, that's it, honestly, and that's not even disrespect to Cole Anthony or Amir Coffey. It's just not exactly what we were forecasting or predicting. And then thinking about what they do, what they bring, whether or not they're actually going to be a part of this team, I maybe think
Yeah.
that there's something else that's going to happen or a corresponding move. So I would say the biggest thing is I'm still locked in on what's going to happen after this.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this was a little bit of a surprise just because I didn't expect them to get two players in return for Nick
Mm.
Richards. I mean, maybe if they package Nigel and Nick together, I was like, okay, then maybe we'll see who they get back. I could maybe see Amir Coffey fitting in on this team, somehow figuring into the rotation, a three-point shooter. He's somebody, Steven, that you and I talked about over this offseason. But Cole Anthony is not somebody that I would really expect to figure into this rotation as well. So does somebody get cut? Who gets cut? But the financial implications, the Suns save money with this. It's a money saving move. I know that people don't exactly like to hear that, but at the end of the day, it feels like smart maneuvering. I guess the question is next, Steven, if any of these guys get into the rotation, who would it be? And if they do find a way to be there, why? Like, what is it on the court that one of these two guys can bring that will actually help this version of the Suns?
I mean, yeah, Amir Coffey. That's a guy that shot 40% from deep on north of 3 attempts last season. That's a guy that shot 42% on catch and shoot threes alone last season on a little bit over 3 attempts a game, while starting for a team that was in the playoffs last season in the Los Angeles Clippers. So, I mean, like you said, we spoke a lot about Amir Coffey. We thought he was a good fit for the Suns and what they wanted to do in theory going forward after the Durant trade over the summer. Takes a little bit longer for them to get a talent like that in the room, but I think Coffee adds value to their rotation. You talk about one in wings that can cut, that can catch and shoot, that can guard 1 through 3.5 to almost 1 through 4 and switch viably. Understands what a playoff defense looks like and what it takes to be successful individually and as a team defender within that. Also brings size, 6'7", close to a 7-foot wingspan as well. Has some athleticism to him, plays well in transition. I think Amir Coffey is not the loudest name, and I think people will naturally run to seeing what his numbers look like with Milwaukee, and they'll be like, oh, he's not making the rotation. Not the case. Context matters. I think the Suns' team play is something that aligns with his style of play that might be able to put him in a better spot. What do you think, Gil?
When you outline that, Steven, I think that like he does feel a lot like a Suns player. Like he wasn't necessarily the player that he was in LA this year in Milwaukee, but there's a bunch of stuff going on in Milwaukee at context matters. You kind of have to look through that and kind of sort through some of the noise, and they don't really know exactly who they are or what they want to be this year. So thinking about him, thinking about the guys that have come here, and you think it's a marginal acquisition, and they come in and they do a lot of things. He's capable of doing a lot of those little things. You're talking about knocking down open shots. Being a pro, I didn't even realize this is year 7 in the league for him. So this is a guy who's been in the league, spent the first 7 seasons of his career with the Clippers organization, and he joined their organization the same time that they made that big offseason move. So he's been in a situation where they've had championship aspirations, no pun intended, the entire time that he was there. So thinking about what he did and understanding he knows how to play high leverage ball and he's played around those guys, I think he should be somebody that's malleable and easy to fit in and do what's asked of him once he gets here.
Yeah, this season is not great for Amir Coffey, but also you have to look at the Milwaukee Bucks, who've just been an absolute disaster this season overall. He's played 30 games. He's only started 2 of them. He's playing less than 10 minutes per game, right? He's only averaging 2.4 points per game. He's shooting 28% from deep on not even an attempt per game. But then you go to last season for the Clippers, who were good. 72 games played, 24 minutes, 9.7 points per game, so nearly a double-digit points per game score, adding 2 rebounds and assists, shooting over 40% from deep on 3.5 attempts per game. You see the vision. Also, the Suns traded 2 guys who are not in the rotation. Nigel Davis and Nick Richards do not play for this team. They have not played for this team in a very, 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 very long time. So if you don't play them, you're not changing anything. I don't understand why. I mean, I get it. People are going to be underwhelmed whenever your trade doesn't bring back a big name or maybe a splashy name that can actually get involved with a team or that has good production. But it's not like the Suns traded Royce O'Neal and Grayson Allen for Amir Coffey, right? Like they traded 2 guys that aren't in the rotation. So if at the end of the day, one of them gets cut or neither of them play or they both get 5 minutes per game, it doesn't really matter that much because I don't want to say playing with house money, but you kind of are because these guys, if they're not in the rotation, were traded for players that also weren't in the rotation. To me, it's a low risk move. You save money, you get under the luxury tax, you can open up another roster spot that can then elevate a Jamari Bouye or an Isaiah Livers, or if you go out on the buyout market as players continually start to get bought out around this time, like you still get the flexibility. Plus, who knows? Maybe they make another trade. I would honestly doubt it, but I don't understand people being upset at this trade. And I get it's like, oh, another guard. It's okay. Well, one of them is kind of a forward that could shoot threes over his career. And again, you traded 2 guys, Steven, who didn't play. And by all means, Nigel Davis, a good vibes guy, but you traded it for maybe 1 guy or possibly 2 that could play.
Yeah. So I say this with a certain tone because I want to come across as respectful, but it's also a little bit annoying when we see some of the discourse about um just gonna say Ryan Dunn. People talking about, oh my God, he shouldn't be in the rotation. Oh my God, he's not good. All those things are wrong. But the team goes to make a move that opens a roster spot that has a player that's cut from that exact same archetype that has 5 more years of NBA experience, that started for a team that's been in the playoffs before, has done all of the things that people pound the table for wanting to see on consistency from Ryan Dunn. And then the Suns make a move like this, bring one of those guys in, and it's like, oh my God, that's it. It's like, bro, you have to pick a side. You can't keep moving around. If you're getting something on the absolute most margin of margins, opening up a roster spot to add value to what you've established, Amir Coffey's a player that could potentially take Ryan Dunn's minutes. I think that's probably the easiest way of putting it. But when you have another player that can do a lot of the things that you've been asking for from a player that has kind of slid down in rotation and role with the team from the beginning of the season, that's a win in and of itself. It's not the sexiest name, it's not the loudest name, but the Suns have already said they're not doing something that's going to be that at this deadline at the moment. So look at it that way, just kind of tweak your perspective just a little bit. And the last thing is just watch the games. See if Amir Coffey is going to crack the rotation. And if he does, what does that impact look like?
Absolutely. The thing that when you said it, it kind of crossed my mind is he's got somebody to look at right now, too,
Sure.
right? Like, by all accounts, we've never heard anything about Amir Coffey being a bad locker room guy. I think most guys of his caliber, and I'm not saying he's a bad player, he's a solid player in the NBA, solid role player in the league, but those guys hang around by being good locker room guys. That's how they extend their career. So there's nothing in my mind that tells me he's not going to be a good example for Ryan Dunn to be like, oh, okay, it's a guy with similar physical profile to me. He does things that has an impact. How can I find some ways to stick around the league like he stuck around? Like we talked about some of the numbers. The 2 years before coming here, 8.2 points per game on basically 40% three-point shooting. I'm sure if that was what this team got from Ryan Dunn over the next 2 seasons, everybody would be very happy about that. So for him to have an archetype to kind of see that, sometimes you need to see something to know you could be something. That'd be something interesting as far as that goes. So I fully expect him to get opportunity, some rotational minutes, see if he can be impactful. And what we've seen from other guys figuring out and finding their way in the system under Jordan, I'm confident about that.
I think we buried the lead though, Eric.
Yeah.
What's your handedness, sir?
My handedness.
Yes.
Left, I guess.
If
that's what you're
there you
asking.
go.
No.
Add a lefty to the rotation.
Yes, there's a couple of other things with Amir Coffey. There are some ties to the Suns that I kind of mentioned in the cold open. We're going to get there, but almost 400 of you in here live right now to talk about Nick Richards getting traded. Hit the like button, please. We just hit that 400 mark. Hit that subscribe button. Today's going to be a big day for PHNX Suns. It could be a big day for PHNX Sports. We are so close to 50,000 subscribers. So if you could hit that subscribe button, if everybody in here hit that subscribe button, we would break 50,000 right now. Plus, coming up at 11 Southwest Bias with Espo. He's going to be talking to former Suns GM Ryan McDonough. We'll try to wrap up around then, but we'll keep on talking about this trade here. But make sure that even if we go a little bit past 11, that you jump over to that stream and watch that. And then guess what? At noon, we are going to be live again up until the hour to the trade deadline. And then we'll be back tonight for a pregame, a postgame show, maybe more. We'll see as the Suns take on the Warriors. So a big packed day. Let's kind of wrap things up here. Let's go ahead and put a poll in the chat, Ayrton, about how people would grade this trade. I want to kind of go to your point on the basketball side of things, Gil, before bringing up a fun little history between Amir Coffey and Devin Booker for those who forget. But you mentioned that Jordan Ott can get the most out of people. And there are discernible skills with Amir Coffey, and we've seen him play his best basketball when he's been surrounded by what? A good team, a good playoff caliber team with other good players around them. The Milwaukee Bucks are an absolute disaster this year. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. They are an absolute disaster. The only good thing about the Bucks is what Doc Rivers has had to say about non-basketball things. That's the only good thing that's been happening with the Bucks so far this season. And so when you look at Amir Coffey, you can definitely see a Jordan Ott system, a system that prioritizes threes and effort and kind of elevating those around you. So where the sum is greater than its parts, I think Amir Coffey can fit into that. And if he doesn't, you saved money. To me, this kind of feels like a no-brainer trade. I don't understand the hesitation with it, because if you found somebody who's that archetype who could hit threes, great. He can fit in, play alongside almost anybody on this roster. If not, okay, you cut somebody. If Cole Anthony plays or he doesn't, you can cut him, and then you have guys that are already working. You don't mess up any vibes, chemistry, locker room, rotations. I don't understand why there are so many people who are like almost up in arms about this trade.
Right. Yeah. As the man next to me would say, context matters so much, and thinking about, Amir Coffey in a situation, right? Like the Bucks have been up and down. They are dealing with the mess. They're putting out fires basically on a nightly basis. And that's a tough situation for anybody to thrive in, but especially somebody in their first season with the franchise. Yeah. Now you bring them to a situation in which the vibes couldn't be higher. And I think if there's concern about him bringing down the vibes, I'm pretty sure somebody would be very happy to leave that basketball situation and join this basketball situation, given how high the vibes are. Honestly, in a lot of ways, a very much an opposite situation. Then again, proof of concept with all the guys who have come here. I mean, even us talking about Jamari Bouye joining this franchise, I'm thinking, oh, it's just whatever. We couldn't see this team without him now. So we could sit here and say, oh, man, like this is just whatever. But there is a timeline in which Amir Coffey becomes a key part of what this team does on a night-to-night basis. And to your point, Eric, if it doesn't, you didn't lose much. I don't necessarily think I know it seemed like the guys like Nick, they like Nigel. Why wouldn't you like those guys? But I don't think it's a situation where people are going to be that up in arms outside of understanding it's a business and then bringing somebody in who's in a better basketball situation. I don't think the chemistry or the culture or the vibes are brought down as much. So worst case scenario, you have a guy who just is a number, but best case scenario, he comes in and he makes an impact and he adds something to this team that could very much be useful in this day and age.
One of the things that I like about Amir, especially if we're talking about him fitting with what the Suns have as a template for success, especially from that kind of 2-3-4 position, for non kind of primary ball handlers in that. So I'm thinking Colin a little bit. I'm thinking more so though Grayson. I'm thinking Royce. I'm thinking Ryan. Kind of in a Rasheer a little bit because he's kind of been in and out of the rotation. Those guys, they want to be quick decision makers. And Amir is a guy that does a lot of those things as like a foundation for his success offensively. So he can dribble, can put the ball in the deck. One of the better guys attacking closeouts, especially from the role player realm last season. Being able to go and finish at the basket or just keep an advantage after someone else gets a paint touch. Those things matter. I think the ability to cut, needless to say, is something that we've hammered the point home on this season for the Suns with the movement that they get into. And he's comfortable shooting in those different types of movement that the Suns use as around pick and roll and isolation and things like that. So I think he's a hand in glove fit for what it is that they're going to be asking for from anybody that's in the rotation. Now it's just a matter of how quickly is he able to establish some type of continuity or chemistry with guys. But to your point, I think he has a little bit of that kind of glue guy about him. Just being malleable is the word that you use. And just being able to unlock some different lineups, give you another option outside of the 7 or 8 guys that you've been using so far, particularly on the wing.
Not for nothing, he had his best game as a Buck last night. 16 points was a season high on 7 of 8 shooting. So, talk about buying high when the striking while the iron's hot. Had a big game.
He knew he was on his way out.
I mean, he did that without Giannis too.
See,
he did that without Giannis and Bobby. So
there you go.
So a couple of things here just to kind of put a bow on this before Espo gets started on Southwest Bias. Again, to over 400 of you in here right now. We'll be back at noon, so don't worry. You can hang out on our channel and subscribe. Eddie Johnson tweeted about Nick Richards. Of course, Eddie Johnson, Suns legend, Suns broadcaster, if you don't know, says Nick Richards was personified first class. Not easy to sit and watch like he did, but I was impressed with how he handled it. Good luck in Milwaukee. It is unfortunate that the Nick Richards experience in Phoenix is ending the way that it did. Obviously, I was very high on him when the Suns did trade for him last year. Thought that he was going to be a big addition to that center rotation, that centerpiece that the Suns really needed. And for a little bit, he was. It just didn't work out. Nigel Hayes-Davis, Steven, I know that you and I, again, this is a guy we talked about in the offseason that we feel like could have been a secret weapon for the Suns. Unfortunately, hasn't seemed to be able to find his footing in the NBA with the Phoenix Suns so far. But this feels like an opportunity for both of them to go to a team that's clearly bottoming out, clearly struggling. They want to keep their pick and possibly get some rotation minutes, see some action on the court. Maybe earn another contract to vet min to stay in the league going forward as two guys who weren't playing on a good team. It does feel like a good opportunity for those two guys who, again, were nothing but class acts for this team. Even if they weren't playing, the team loved them, and it was very clear about that.
Yeah, Nigel gets to go back to Wisconsin. Obviously, where his claim to fame was from his collegiate success with the Wisconsin Badgers. The Michigan State in me is wanting to barf saying that, but yeah. Nigel gets another opportunity. I think Nick gets some opportunity. I think they both, to your point, Eric, get opportunity that they may not have gotten with the Suns unless there was kind of some unforeseen situation that came up. But yeah, those guys were definitely class acts, to Eddie Johnson's point. I know he spoke specifically to Nick, but Nigel, seeing in the middle of everything in terms of the things that they were getting into off the camera at times, the player interactions, kind of fostering that culture that obviously persists now and has sustained as a winning one for them as they're laying the foundation. Yeah, those guys were class acts. That's all you can ask for in a situation where I believe they both were hoping for more opportunity to be earned. It didn't happen that way. And now they get extended a new life, a new opportunity doing so with a different franchise.
And something to your point, too, a lot of times we say the ball finds energy. That's how it works in life, too, right? Like, those guys remain positive and they find a situation where they have a new opportunity. You know, Nigel going back to Wisconsin, Nick in a situation where they could use him in Milwaukee as far as him trying to figure things out. And we say so much about guys in this league, right? Like, man, who knew they had this within them? They just need to find the right situation. It wasn't the right situation in Phoenix for those guys. So maybe a new opportunity, be it in Milwaukee or elsewhere in this league. It's only 30 teams in this league, right? So for them to have another opportunity, you know, you wish nothing but the best for them. And again, I think that the positivity that they put in the universe will come back to them as they embark on their next step in their journeys.
XX Stakey XX says, never heard of y'all, but love your discussion. Death subbing. Well, big shout out to you. Big shout out to everybody here in the chat. If you're not familiar with PHNX Sports or PHNX Suns, we go live pregame, postgame for every single show. We're live 5 days during the offseason talking Suns. Plus, we have Cardinals, D-backs, ASU, U of A, plus Espo, who's also on this show, does Southwest Bias at 11 every single day, which is basically like our morning talk show talking about the biggest and best of Arizona sports. That's going to get started here soon. Ryan McDonough, former Suns GM, is going to be joining Espo, so make sure you tune into that. We're going to keep going here just for a couple more minutes until we get there. Give me trade grades. Guys, Nick Richards, Nigel Hayes-Davis on the way out for the Phoenix Suns. They're bringing in Amir Coffey and Cole Anthony. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. Whatever you want to grade it, let me know.
I mean, why did you stop at K? You might as well just kept going.
Circle K. We love Circle K. That's why
and he didn't want you to say this trade was an L. So
well,
yeah, facts. That's a good one.
Yeah, that's where he was. Yeah, I'll give it a B minus. I don't think it's like some shifting move that took place, obviously, but what it did enable is opportunity to pay the guys that are in house that have done the things that you've wanted to see more of from everybody. So you get to extend opportunity to some guys. So I think because of that. And then obviously, like we talked about, Coffee being able to add on your margins, I would say it's a solid B minus.
Yeah, I just dropped a B in the poll on here, so I'm on the same wavelength. Basically, I think the big thing is not it's marginal basketball wise, but business wise, it is above average. So I think that averages out to a B. And again, there is, I guess, room for extra credit, so to speak, in that if these guys end up being more than we expect them to be, we could look back at this trade and say, hey, this is what turned things not around, but like, you know, took things to another level. I don't know. You never know.
I know people are going to hear this and think, oh, of course, Eric's. I kind of feel like this is an A minus to me because I'm grading on a curve. Because I'm grading on a curve, okay? And hear me out. In general, this is like a B minus B trade. It doesn't really matter that much, but I don't see any downside with this trade. If I'm being completely honest with you, I don't think Nick Richards and Nigel Hayes-Davis, I think they could play better. I don't think they'll play to a point that you regret moving on from them and that they could actually help you in the playoffs. Okay, so that's a risk that's eliminated. You're bringing in two guys that if they don't play are replacing two guys who weren't in the rotation. So if they suck or if they get cut or if they don't live up to expectations, there's no risk there. You're not taking on any money to do this. You're doing this and you're getting under the luxury tax. You're saving money. You might be able to open up a roster spot. Okay, that's another risk that's eliminated. And of course, you're trading them to a bad Milwaukee team. So even if it does bite you in the ass, if Nick Richards starts going for 20 and 10 and Nigel Hayes-Davis is a rotation player, it won't come and bite you in the ass in any significant way this season. So to me, it's an A minus because I don't see the downside, not necessarily because there's a massive upside. I think there's a little bit of an upside, and that to me gets me a little bit excited about this and the possibility of what can this team do to another player or two that was on the margins, that wasn't playing well, that another team gave up on. The last Milwaukee Buck to join the Phoenix Suns, Jamari Bouye. The Milwaukee Buck before that, Grayson Allen. Right? These are guys who got better in their time here. And so I wouldn't be surprised that if one of these two, specifically Amir Coffey, end up in that light. Grades from the chat, let me know if you guys are surprised. I would base off of your grades, probably not. 16% going with an A, 42% going with a B, 32% going with a C, and 10% going with a D/F.
Harsh. That feels harsh. But, you know, I get it. Everybody's entitled to what they think. It is what it is. Ultimately, like, at the end of the day, like, I don't think it could be any lower than a C plus just because like we're really not risking like anything at the end of the day. So feels like a low risk, high reward potential type situation.
Save money, open a roster spot, add a piece that could potentially be added to your rotation. I don't think it's anything to say, oh my God, that's it. But I also don't think it's enough to say, oh my God, they're going to the finals. Like, there's a middle ground that can be met there with that.
Fair.
Okay. One last thing. Espo's going live on Southwest Bias, so make sure you tune into that. Yet another infinity zone for Devin Booker to collect as players that he's had beef with in the past, although this one might be the weirdest beef that he's ever had. If you don't remember, all the way back a couple of years ago, Devin Booker talked about the Nuggets having Amir Coffey's face on the big screen instead of his for starter intros. Quote, and this is from Dwayne Rankin, "That was disrespectful." And then Devin Booker thinks that it was, quote, purposely done, and that, quote, "we got the last laugh." So now it comes full circle. Another player that Devin Booker has a little bit of a history with. Like I said, that intro, the PA, and of course the big screen in the arena are going to need to be on their P's and Q's. Let's get out of here because we're going to be back here at noon. Please hit the subscribe button. We have a new shirt right now at gophnx.com. It's a villain shirt. You can go ahead and check that out as well. A brand new design, VILLON. Go check that out, gophnx.com on our merch store. And we'll be back at noon for Trade Deadline Reacts. Espo will give his thoughts on this on Southwest Bias. And in the meantime, you can follow the show at PHNX_Suns. You can follow Steven, who's at every home game, practice, shoot around, Valley Suns game. He's in your house. He's everywhere. He's literally everywhere.
I'm not at your crib. I'm not at your crib.
You never know.
Might be on the TV or a monitor or whatever. I'm not at your crib.
You can follow him at Steven PG3. That's Steven with a PH. You can follow Gil at Gil McGregor _. And of course, you can follow me at ERINKRUBY. Shout out the Freckled Mamba behind the Mac who drove into the studio and immediately got behind the Mac. You can follow him at Freckled Mamba. We'll see y'all in an hour. Watch Southwest Bias. Until then, peace.
We all silly like the mayor.